Today's session is on the dreaded fourth wave of COVID-19. In today's Facebook Live session, we'll be speaking to our health experts about what constitutes a wave, the breakdown of each wave, and what scientists and medical professionals are proposing we do about it. So salam sejahtera semua dan selamat datang ke Sense with Science, apa kata sains. Walaupun kami telah mengubah masa program kami, saya berharap bahawa kebijaksanaan positif dan berasaskan sains dari Tan Sri Dr. Jamila Mahmud dan Profesor Adiba Kamrul Zaman akan terus memberi inspirasi kepada anda untuk mengikuti dan menjadi sebahagian daripada projek semangat ini. Sesi hari ini adalah atas gelombang keempat COVID-19. Dalam sesi langsung Facebook hari ini, kami akan berbincang dengan pakar kesihatan kami mengenai apa yang dimaksudkan dengan gelombang, pemecahan setiap gelombang dan apa yang dicadangkan oleh para saintis dan profesional perubatan untuk keselamatan kami senegara.
Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera. Good morning everyone. Welcome back to Sense with Science. Dan kami sangat berbangga hari ini kerana ada tetamu khas Dato Dr Fadzilah yang rakan saya Profesor Adiba akan memberi sedikit penjelasan. Jadi kita tahu sekarang kita mengalami gelombang keempat. We are seeing a high spike of cases now, particularly in some states. Jadi ini adalah satu peluang untuk anda bertanya soalan dan untuk kita berbincang bagaimana kita boleh sama-sama memecahkan gelombang ini dan menjaga diri kita, keluarga kita, masyarakat kita. Over to you, Adiba.
Terima kasih Tan Sri. Assalamualaikum dan selamat pagi semua. Terima kasih kerana bersama kami walaupun we had a little break dalam siri Sense with Science ini. Kami amat berbangga kerana dapat menjemput Dato Dr Fadzilah Kamaluddin, mantan pengarah Institut Penyelidikan Perubatan Malaysia dan juga salah seorang pakar dalam kumpulan yang dinamakan External Advisory Group kepada Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri dalam memberi pendapat yang berasaskan sains untuk menangani COVID-19 baru-baru ini. Seperti yang mungkin ramai sedia maklum, kumpulan ini telah mengeluarkan satu press statement dengan cadangan-cadangan untuk mempertingkatkan lagi kaedah-kaedah prevention dalam menangani gelombang keempat ini ataupun berterusan gelombang ketiga. We're not sure whether it's a continuation or a new, at least I'm not sure whether it's a continuation or it's a true gelombang keempat. Saya rasa kita amat bertuah kerana Dato Dr Fadzilah sememangnya adalah seorang pakar epidemiologi, terutamanya epidemic intelligence dan Karen akan introduce lagi Dato. Terima kasih Karen.
I'm so proud and so grateful to have with us Dr. Fadzilah Kamaluddin with us today. She is a public health medicine specialist with an MBS from the University of Malaya and a master's in public health medicine from the National University of Singapore. So very Southeast Asian based. Dr. Fadzilah is also trained in executive strategic management for healthcare at the Harvard School of Public Health, and she spearheaded the Epidemic Intelligence Program, EIP Malaysia, since its inception in 2002, and she's among the 19 experts invited by the Task Force for Global Health to develop the Global Field Epidemiology Roadmap. She's been appointed to the World Health Organization Expert Committee for MERS-CoV, and on several occasions as WHO Technical Advisor for Field Epidemiology Training Evaluation for countries in the Western Pacific region. Talk about amazing women. What a rock star. Welcome so much. And thank you so much for joining us, even though you're under the weather, Dr. Fadzilah.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum and thank you. I mean, I'm so humbled with all the introduction. I'm just a plain person who has just retired actually from the Ministry of Health. Actually, my last posting was with IMR, Institute of Medical Research. Okay, actually, I'm trained in field epidemiology. I think that's a word quite not very familiar in Malaysia. But if whenever I go to US and I showed my immigration, the officer my invitation letter from US CDC, and he said, "Oh, you are a ghost. You are the bug buster or the bug hunter." So that's what they call us. So basically, what we do is we look at data, we tease out the data, and to find out what is actually going on. And so we make use a lot of data-driven decision making.
Dr. Fadzilah, Sense with Science is about distilling medical and technical knowledge. Program ini adalah mengenai penyulingan pengetahuan perubatan dan teknikal menjadi pertuturan yang lebih biasa lah. So kalau oleh itu, bolehkah Dr. Fadzilah menentukan apa itu gelombang ketika kita berbicara tentang pandemic? What exactly constitutes a wave when we talk about pandemics?
Okay. When we talk about gelombang, actually, we look at data. We tend to look at, we compile the data over time span, and we see hubs and rising tune. And then what we do is, why is that happening? We're just not looking at it. Sometimes, is it really a true increase, or sometimes it's just artifact, what you call artifact inside, because you introduce a new kind of diagnostic kits that also can cause an increase, or suddenly there's a new officer who is really keen on analyzing data, and then you see there's a change of definition. No, there's many reasons why you see a rise when you look at the whole spectrum of the data. So in this COVID, now Malaysia is in the fourth wave, as most of us see. As field epidemiologists, we don't really look at it as waves, because when in a pandemic, what we usually say is all of us are under the water. So you really don't know which waves are you going into. So what is more important is, you look at the data, if you see there is an abnormal trend, especially an increasing trend, we want to know why it's happening, where is it happening, who is being affected. Those are more important to us than the ups and downs, as everyone can see.
All right, that taken into consideration, Dr. Fadzilah, Dr. Jamila opened our session up today by saying that we are in a pretty tight situation. We know we've crested. This is a really, really tough. It feels as if, in the analogy of surfing, it feels as if we've ridden a wave out, and it was a really good wave, and we're nicely on the board, but we're being swamped again. What's happening? What is causing the spikes? Why are the spikes happening? And is it because we are conducting more intensive testing that is leading us to these heightened numbers?
I like the way you say the surfing board. So that where we go surfing, we use the same board. But in terms of these kind of waves in pandemic, we cannot use the same board. What I mean is, you cannot use the same strategy. Maybe the strategy that we have been using is not working anymore. Maybe in the first wave, let's say if the first wave, maybe the susceptible one are the high risk groups that are the comorbids. Now, what we are saying now is the younger ones. So it is maybe we need to use a different surfing board already. It's not the same surfing board that we've been using all the while. So we have to really think again, are we doing the right strategy? Are we, our policies are data driven? Are the SOPs are taken into consideration? Are we vigilant into it? And all those needs to be taken into consideration. It's just not going and using the same surfing board all over as how high or how low the wave is. No, it doesn't work that way. May look at
Karen,
data.
if you may allow me to jump in, Karen.
Of course.
Yeah. I think dah berapa kali Dato Dr Fadzilah stress the importance of data, ya, and sekarang ni the data that's coming out of Ministry of Health is saying that it's among younger people, it's among we're putting to some extent the blame on Ramadan Bazaar, but has the data really been scrutinized to allow us to make that, as you are saying, to make the change in strategy? Because I think the first first and foremost important thing is to really understand. Sometimes like what you're saying, we say is the Ramadan Bazaar, but is it truly the Ramadan Bazaar? I think epidemic intelligence experts like yourself will go deeper, isn't it, to look at what's really driving the pandemic. Have we done that? Do you know? Maybe I should ask that of Tan Sri Jamila.
Yes.
Di sinilah saya masuk, ya. Sebenarnya apa yang Dato Fadzilah dan Prof Dato Adiba sebutkan tu memang betul. We have to be data driven, evidence driven, sebab one of the challenges with pandemics is, as we know, the nature of the virus is that it likes to play tricks with us and change its behavior, and also dalam keadaan pandemik yang berterusan ni, manusia pun susah untuk comply dengan SOP. Jadi kita dah letih. Kadang-kadang pakai mask tu mungkin okey lagi, tapi bila nak buat social distancing dan sebagainya lebih susah. So dari segi data, itu memang satu point yang sangat penting, dan sekarang KKM ada satu data analysis team yang menggunakan machine learning dan artificial intelligence yang disokong oleh Bank Negara dan pihak-pihak lain, di mana mereka dapat meneliti lagi data-data yang ada, dan sekarang boleh kita almost can pinpoint dekat mana sebenarnya asal usul di mana virus itu mula berjangkit, dan kita dapati bahawa beberapa faktor yang utama adalah workplaces, tempat kerja, di mana mungkin bukan saja tempat kediaman pekerja, tetapi juga dalam disiplin kerja tu yang saya sebutkan ni bukan sahaja factory, bukan sahaja kilang-kilang, tapi juga dalam office biasa. Mereka sudah alpa dan lupa bahawa penting untuk memakai mask dan jangan berkumpul dan sebagainya. Jadi office workplace is very important. Dan keduanya ialah beberapa hotspot yang telah di-identify. Ada juga bazar Ramadan yang mengikut SOP dengan ketat, tapi ada juga yang tidak. Jadi bila mereka tidak, dan ada semalam saya rasa dah keluar notis bahawa beberapa Ramadan Bazaar ditutup kerana memang dah dapat through artificial intelligence kita boleh pinpoint Ramadan Bazaar yang mana yang mempunyai masalah, dan kita boleh follow the trend, and sebab kita boleh triangulate data case yang positif, mana check in check out dia, supaya kita boleh tahu origin of the virus and how it spreads. Jadi yang Dato Fadzilah sebut tu memang betul. It is about evidence based. Jadi sekarang strateginya ialah kita pinpoint. Kita jangan blanket saja buat decision, kita kena buat lebih precision targeting. Tetapi malangnya kalau kita sampai ke satu tahap di mana bilangan kes terlalu banyak untuk dan membebankan sistem kesihatan, sama ada sistem kesihatan swasta ataupun public, maknanya kerajaan, satu tindakan yang mungkin lebih drastik diperlukan, sebab kita tak boleh langsung menjadi dalam situasi seperti India dan sebagainya bila tidak ada lagi kapasiti untuk membantu rakyat mendapat health services ataupun perkhidmatan kesihatan, ya. Dan yang seperti Datuk sebutkan tadi juga tentang golongan muda, memang the majority case yang positif adalah antara umur 20 hingga 29 ataupun 30 tahun. tapi mereka biasanya tidak mempunyai simptom yang teruk, gejala yang teruk. Jadi mereka tak tahu dan mereka berjalan dan bersiar, dan yang teruk yang dapat sakit tu adalah golongan yang rentan, maknanya yang tua, yang ada komorbiditi. Inilah sebabnya sementara kita cuba menganalisa data, sangat penting untuk kita juga actively test dan melebarkan lagi testing di kalangan masyarakat.
Prof. Fadzilah, as a doctor on the ground and as a medic who actually goes in and does ward rounds and speaks to patients and treats patients, do you see that corresponding trend in your patients as well?
Yes, Karen, very much so. Dan semenjak kebelakangan ini, kami juga dari Pusat Perubatan Universiti Malaya berhubung rapat dengan doktor-doktor yang mengendalikan MAIPS di Serdang dan juga of course rakan-rakan kami di Hospital Sungai Buloh. Dan berita yang kami dapat amat membimbangkan, di mana di Hospital Sungai Buloh terutamanya mereka terpaksa membuka lebih banyak katil-katil ICU dan boleh dikatakan separuh daripada pesakit di Hospital Sungai Buloh sekarang memerlukan oksigen, ya, not counting the ones in ICU. Jika kita lihat pada gelombang pertama dan kedua, di mana kebanyakan daripada pesakit mengalami penyakit di dalam kategori 1 dan 2, tetapi masih juga dirawat, dimasukkan ke hospital. Sekarang ini kebanyakan dari, in fact di Sungai Buloh dan juga di Pusat Perubatan Universiti Malaya, kami hanya akan mengambil pesakit yang dikatakan kategori 3 ke atas, di mana mereka memerlukan rawatan yang lebih intensif. So memang pada kami semua, keadaan ini at least apa yang saya dapat lihat di Selangor dan Kuala Lumpur amat membimbangkan. Baru semalam pengarah Hospital Perubatan Universiti Malaya dan saya selaku Task Force Chair telah bersetuju untuk membuka lebih banyak ward untuk rawatan COVID-19 dan lebih banyak katil intensive care. Dari mula-mula tu a few months ago hanya 4, sekarang 8 dan sekarang 16 intensive care, dan we will depending on the situation, we opened 30 more beds yesterday. We have the capacity to go up to 90, 120, whatever, but we will see and play our part in supporting Ministry of Health.
And because we're seeing so many new younger patients, are we also seeing a corresponding spike in the number of young children patients?
I think that the spike in children has partly to do with, schools reopening and all that. But fortunately, for the most part, children, have little symptoms. Of course, there are conditions, they can get severe disease, but compared to adults, it's less.
Okay. Dr. Fadzilah, adakah kemunculan mutasi baru selalu menjadi pendahuluan kepada gelombang baru? Is a new mutation figuring into this spike for the fourth wave?
That's a good question. Yes, that we see even in India, that's what happened actually when there's a new virus to the existing virus, they shift and bridge. So that you see suddenly a rise in the number of cases. Why this is happening is because all of us, the immune system, it has something to do. So let's say you are naturally immune, then suddenly there's a new variant, then you might not be immune to it already. And then you see more people are susceptible to it. That's one of the most common reason why you see we will tend as intelligence, they will say, oh, maybe there's a new variant of the virus. But the thing is, it is good if we have a viral surveillance data coming in. So then we can see. We really hope that KKM also share the viral surveillance, and then we can make an alert to everyone that's a new variant. Now we see, we get news that say we are getting in the South African variant. So, and then suddenly they see a spike. But if we can have a surveillance of from the virus surveillance, then you really can see and follow and give some sort of risk communication to the public and be more vigilant in your SOPs and all the public health measures, because you never know how this virus is acting, because we are all trying to combat a novel virus. We don't know how today it can behave this way, tomorrow it can behave another way. So if we get more information, more data coming in, inshallah, we can do better analysis. Yeah, and also I really concur with what Tan Sri Jamila was saying just now, that KKM now has come up with the artificial intelligence. Now we can predict where the hotspots are. That's a good move. That's really a good move, because now we can predict 7 days ahead, so we can get ourselves prepared. But more importantly, the risk communication, the strategic messaging to the public is very important.
Yeah.
Because
If I can just answer on the variants, sebenarnya Ketua Pengarah Kesihatan banyak kali memberi informasi tentang varian, tapi mungkin untuk masyarakat not detail as an epidemiologist would like to know. Tetapi kita ada banyak varian sekarang di dunia kita ni yang kita risaukan. Ada variant of concern and variant of interest. Jadi kita tengok variant of concern dulu yang membimbangkan. Adalah UK variant yang B1117, itu memang dah sampai di Malaysia tapi masih contain at the moment. Jadi yang Fadzilah sebutkan tadi sangat penting, genomic surveillance. Maknanya bila kita ada pesakit, kita ambil sampel yang kita buat PCR tu juga, kita juga cuba culture virus tu, kita tengok macam mana jenis apa virus itu. Jadi kita juga ada 1351 dari South Africa. Dan ini memang ada di Malaysia. Kita juga ada satu Nigerian variant tapi dia tidak membuat no concern. Yang kita sangat bimbang sekarang adalah the Indian double mutation dan juga Brazil P1 dan juga Breton variant dari negeri Perancis. Jadi ada beberapa daripada variant ini kalau kita buat PCR pun mungkin kita tak detect. Jadi ada kemungkinan kalau varian tu ada pun mungkin kita tak dapat tahu. Jadi the bottom line is kita mesti sangat berhati-hati sekarang sebab keadaan kita sekarang quite critical dan memerlukan masyarakat sebenarnya mengambil tindakan kesihatan am, which is yang kita sebutkan selalu avoid 3C, jangan pergi ke tempat yang sesak, jangan pergi tempat yang tertutup, jangan pergi ke tempat di mana conversation. Saya tengok semalam kebetulan saya pergi buka puasa, saya saja nak tengok SOP, saya takut, saya tak makan pun, saya balik. Ini di Wisma Pertiwi dekat Mindef. Sebab saya pergi tengok surau dia, ya Allah, tak ada langsung ikut SOP. Bila pergi ambil makan pun ada mask dan sebagainya. Saya masuk nak tengok, saya ambil tu, saya cabut terus, saya takut. Jadi ini adalah satu keadaan yang sangat membimbangkan, tapi masyarakat masih mungkin tak faham. Jadi mungkin dari komunikasi kita, adakah kita memberi komunikasi yang terang, yang simple untuk kita faham. Jadi inilah sebabnya kita ada Sense with Science, kan. Jadi itulah satu peringatan pada masyarakat yang mendengar kita hari ini. Saya minta tolonglah jaga diri dan mengikut SOP kita yang sangat penting.
We've got a lot of questions on our Facebook feed, specifically about data gathering and data mining. So there's a question that says, adakah kita loaded with data tetapi lambat atau tidak mampu bertindak sebagaimana sepatutnya? Are we so overloaded with data that we do not know how to extrapolate and how to work on that data and action it quickly?
Yeah, if I may, Karen, let me answer that since I'm closer to the action. Jadi ini satu soalan yang sangat penting. Inilah sebabnya machine learning dan artificial intelligence sangat penting. Sebab kalau kita lihat banyak yang data yang kita dapat tu dari segi numbers. Tapi analisa tu sangat penting dan juga modeling sangat penting. Jadi tapi KKM ada banyak modeling. Dia buat SEIR yang mengeluarkan carta rajah yang mana ada R0 lah, RT kan. Banyak juga modeling yang dibuat. Tapi di sinilah saya rasa yang kepentingan kolaborasi antara KKM, badan-badan kerajaan dan juga badan-badan tertentu yang mempunyai kapasiti untuk artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Right. So there's
Karen, tapi jika saya boleh be a bit more provocative dan tanya Dato Dr Fadzilah dan Tan Sri Jamilah, susulan daripada soalan tu, adakah kita lambat atau tidak mampu bertindak sebagaimana sepatutnya? Because bila saya dengar Tan Sri Jamilah terangkan yang gelombang sekarang ini di mana data mengatakan kebanyakan daripada jangkitan berasal daripada workplaces, ya. And this totally makes sense sebab daripada the new knowledge mengenai how the virus is transmitted, it's indoors, kalau dibandingkan daripada outdoors, dan tempat-tempat yang sesak seperti Tan Sri terangkan tadi. So the question is, have we used that data yang kita sendiri kumpulkan dan kita sekarang tahu it's indoors dan di tempat-tempat kerja dan juga data daripada seluruh dunia, have we really done something about it dari segi menerangkan kepada rakyat that the risk is inside dan penutup muka diperlukan lebih di dalam kawasan, buka pintu, improve your ventilation. If I may be honest, I think that message, Dato, you are also a risk communication expert, is not really getting out there. What do you think, Dato?
Yeah, I agree with you, Prof. The risk communication to the public, that's more important. Sometimes, like you say, the public will feel, what is my role in this? Why do I need to wear a mask? And I feel so stupid wearing a mask inside the house as compared to outside. There's a lot of information, actually banyak information dalam Facebook or the other social media. But sometimes public dapat information tu not from the right source and they may not get the right information. So I feel this is where KKM, the authority like custodian of health for Malaysia, they should come up with more appropriate messages, right messages to the public through it, whatever social media, and also to the TV. Now, sorry to say lah, but now we see very lacking in TV info coming out, messages coming out from KKM sendiri. Okay lah, I mean the young folks would like to read using their smartphones, but bapak-bapak, makcik-makcik, they still use the TV, and so these are the people are also the high risk group. And these are the people that we need also to address. And that I think is still lacking. True, Prof. Adiba, you are very right. That the messaging to is, we are there, we know about this, but the right messages reaching to the right public at large itu masih ada gap banyak.
Saya setuju Dato Fadzilah that we can always improve our risk communication dan kadang-kadang ialah kita kena tailor messaging tu kepada audience kan, siapa yang menerima tu. Jadi mungkin untuk kita yang selalu di social media banyak kita dapat information tapi tak semua orang on social media. Dan satu I must say one good thing that has come out is that NATMA ada menubuhkan satu projek, satu inisiatif yang dipanggil ABC, Agent Basmi COVID, dan di mana rakan kita seperti Datuk Dr Zainal, satu public health expert, dan juga pertubuhan seperti Bulan Sabit Merah, Mercy, Imaret semua bergabung, di mana mereka turun ke masyarakat Jadi sekarang kita kena turun ke masyarakat untuk beritahu face to face dan sebagainya. Now this is very challenging bila kita ada spike in cases, sebab kita tak nak juga, it's very difficult kalau you nak buat community outreach, dan di sinilah di mana sangat penting untuk kita memperkasakan community sendiri. Misalnya ketua kampung dan sebagainya. Jadi baru ni hari Isnin kita tubuhkan satu competition di mana kita nak kampung-kampung bertanding untuk make sure dia punya kampung tu jadi kawasan hijau. Maknanya tak ada kes. Jadi kita akan bagi insentif dan sebagainya supaya mereka menghayati kepentingan untuk dia menjaga komunitas masyarakat sendiri. Sebab kalau kita nak harapkan kerajaan saja yang nak buat, tak boleh. Untuk membasmi pandemik, kita memerlukan all of society approach. Dari segi kerajaan, korporat, individu, ketua kampung, NGO dan sebagainya, dan juga para akademik.
So we're talking about mitigating risk one community at a time, Dr. Jamila. But when we talk about that, we also need to realize that being true to the use of technology and tracking technology is also very important. So a question from Facebook is, apart from MySejahtera, what are other ways that data is being collected from the public? Is there any other way, or is MySejahtera the only way to do this?
I think from what I know, but Tan Sri and Dato may expand on this further. I think most of the data that is being used to analyze is from MySejahtera. Betul tak, Tan Sri?
Yeah, I think MySejahtera is where we collect a lot of data, but of course you and I know, and Fadzilah as well knows, kita ada SIM card, we're also using Google Mobility, because that tells us quite a lot about bagaimana pattern orang bergerak dan sebagainya. Dulu kita juga ada gunakan telcos, juga ada bantu tengok macam mana how movement of people dan sebagainya. Jadi the main source obviously will be, MySejahtera, to look at your check-ins and then the situation of people. So that is it. I don't know what I'm not.
Yeah, I just like to add to that. MySejahtera, actually the data that comes into MySejahtera is mainly used to do prediction for 7 days ahead. How they do it is they collect the information from contacts and casual contacts. So let's say you check in a mall using the MySejahtera, those informations get in. So in the same mall, if somebody is positive, and then they can make the prediction from that. That's how they collectively add all those and analyze the data. Okay, another one that KKM received and they make analysis is what they call e-COVID. And this is, they collect individual information about a case, what they call it siasatan, borang siasatan. And these two is being analyzed. So these, they know who is getting it, what age is the people are getting it. So a lot of data, true, there's a lot of data, but we really encourage also, and we hope KKN also encourage the experts from the universities to come and help out. Okay? This type of, when you use intelligence, during my time, that was 20 years ago when we learned through the hard way of how to calculate and all that. But now you have machine learning. So but there are a lot of data scientists out in the universities that can help KKM to analyze this data, because in terms of data, there's huge amount of data. Because everybody is cooperative, and we got a high percentage of our rakyat scanning using MySejahtera. So there's a lot of information there, but we need also people to help us to analyze the data. And I hope KKN also can reach out to the experts outside, to the universities especially, together, like Tan Sri was saying, that society approach, whole government approach, this is where all those come in. Everybody has a role to play.
Okay. Yesterday there was my daughter was one of 2 students in her class in school yesterday. And it was because somebody had said on the parents chat group, that they believed that there was a COVID positive case within the students of that particular class. And what they failed to say was that that particular student had been not attending school for the past 2 weeks already. So basically, that was not a threat. It was a threat that was removed from the vicinity of the classroom, vicinity of the school. But because of that, the kids lost one school day. The kids are set back again in your work. It brings me back to the point of hotspots, actually, when Professor Adiba was talking about workplaces, and Dr. Jamila was saying how the spread of it was due to people being negligent in the places that they are most comfortable with, at home and in workplaces. Professor Adiba, you've been a very big proponent of ventilation. You've been a big proponent of safer workplaces. Would you like to speak a little bit on this, please?
Yeah, I think that we're not talking enough about the new knowledge around how the virus is transmitted, and that is, airborne transmission, which means macam Tan Sri Jamila kata tadi, avoid going to crowded places, especially if it's indoors. And if you're indoors, make sure that your ventilation is very good. And if you're going to be in crowded places, even if it's outdoors, make sure you have your mask on. So those are the basic things. And then for long term, I think restaurants, hospitals, even, and all buildings need to see how good the ventilation is. We hope to invite ventilation experts soon on Sense with Science, so they can talk in more detail. I'm not an architect or a building engineer, but both WHO and CDC have released new guidelines on ventilation in buildings, giving guidance on how many air exchangers, and if you can't afford fancy devices, and where you place your fans and all that are important. I think the other point I want to ask Dato Fadzilah, if I may, Karen, with regards to data and hotspots, are we using this data, that's pointing to us where the hotspots are, to really do something to break the rantaian, to what do they say, to putuskan rantaian. Sebab that's the whole idea of using data, to predict, sebab otherwise we are always 2 steps behind kalau we're just relying on contact tracing.
Yeah, true. I like that question very much, because yes, there's no point in predicting, but then if you're not doing anything, okay, so it's good we know a place that is very high likely that it will be a hotspot. There's a lot of cases there. What we need to do now, we should actively do FTTIS in that area. Okay, that's what Hong Kong is doing. So they condone those areas, and then everybody, every single person, no excuses, they will do a test. And all those who are positive, they take it out, treat and take it out. So eventually that place, the positivity rate will really go down. There's no point you highlight that, that's a hotspot area, berjaga-jaga, that's all. There's no activity. That is like an atomic bomb waiting for it to be explode. Because, okay, we will condone those areas for 2 weeks. So what after that?
Betul, Dr. Fadzilah. Betul. I mean, for the audience, mungkin tak tahu FTTIS. FTTIS tu find, test, trace, isolate and support. Jadi itu satu kaedah kesihatan awam. Di mana kalau kita tahu satu kawasan, misalnya tempat kerja, kilang ataupun sebagainya, bukan saja di kilang kita test, kawasan keliling dia, masyarakat keliling dia, kita kena test semua. Tapi saya nak share something yang sangat membanggakan. Saya mendapat informasi di mana kadang-kadang di tempat kerja kalau ada kes positif, majikan tu threaten the staff, jangan report yang you positif, dan mereka diam-diam buat ujian dan dapati beberapa staff positif dan sebagainya. So I think kita kena destigmatize COVID-19. Jangan membuatnya satu stigma. Maksudnya bukannya kalau you dapat COVID-19 you bersalah ke, you orang yang tak betul. Itu nasib lah kan kalau kena COVID-19. Tapi tanggungjawab untuk membuat laporan yang sah, tanggungjawab untuk menjalani kuarantin dan sebagainya adalah sangat penting. Sebab sekarang kita ada macam kategori yang rendah, kalau COVID dia boleh isolate di rumah kan. Jadi kita kena patuh pada kuarantin tu. The other thing maybe I want to emphasize, and I really like because Adiba, we have discussed that kita akan invite satu arkitek untuk talk about ventilation and space arrangement in our next episodes. Jadi ini sangat penting. Tapi kita juga ada satu inisiatif yang ilhamkan oleh Selangor, Dato Fadzilah yourself, the POIS. Jadi kita sekarang ada nationwide something called Safe at Work. Ya, di mana kita tapi it's voluntary, maknanya majikan kena volunteer that their staff, their own community become actively engaged in understanding public health and supporting each other. Dan as this is voluntary, kita tak paksa, not that many have signed up, but we have to keep pushing them because it really boils down to behavior. Maknanya kalau mereka ada tabiat yang baik, kemungkinan tu penyakit ni boleh dikawal. Sebab kita tak boleh, sejauh mana yang kita boleh enforce ke, kita nak monitor ke, it's impossible sebab rakyat ramai. Jadi it all begins at individual and family and community level.
Yeah, true. I just like to add that from the Sejahtera analysis, they have showed that 70% of the home surveillance who should be quarantined at home are breakers. 70%. So imagine our own people. I mean, they are supposed to stay at home. I mean, of course, these are the people that the PKDs, the health officers, have gone down, look at the premise, and they feel, and also the person himself says that he can be home quarantined. But and we feel that they are safe, they can quarantine themselves at home, but eventually they break. So 70% that we find that this home surveillance person who initially said that they don't mind quarantine themselves at home, but eventually break. So
is this Malaysian data?
Yeah, it's Malaysian data. It's from my data. This is what we had the last account engagement with them. So we have to really stress to the people that this is their own role to play. Also, not only the health providers role, but also as a public, we have also our role to play.
I mean, there's sentiment among some Malaysians that because people are being vaccinated, this lessens the risk of transmission. I mean, this is so wrong. This belief is so wrong, and it mirrors horribly this feeling of righteousness that it's okay, I can go out even I don't feel sick, and therefore even though I'm on home quarantine, I can go out. So maybe the doctors should help us in seeing that this is not acceptable. That the availability of the vaccine does not mean that you can decry your normal SOPs and your safety protocols.
Especially not yet, because we've only vaccinated 1% of the population. Yes. So there's 99% more to go. Jadi, we really need everyone to play their part, the government, the NGOs, the individuals, so because we still have a very long way to go to reach herd immunity. Scientifically, of course, it's correct that once you're vaccinated, not only it reduces your chance of getting severe disease, and recent studies have also shown it reduces transmission, tetapi our vaccination sekarang is still a drop in the ocean, so the majority have not been vaccinated. So
we've said the big word, ladies. Since we've opened up the vaccination topic, we have questions now. Dr. Jamila, this one is for you. On Facebook, we have bought large quantities of vaccines. However, the jabs to the public is still slow. What is holding the vaccination up?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, we have procured, maknanya kita dah sign deals dengan vaccine manufacturers untuk cover more than 100% of our population. But the supplies don't come in one bulk. It comes in bits and bobs. Like we get 100,000 this week, next week you get another 100,000 and so forth. And then in another month, Sinovac will start, because it's filled and finished in Malaysia. The approval baru dapat last week. So kita akan produce 2 million a month, which is good. Then we will have a more steady supply. And then Pfizer, we are getting in batches. But by June, we will get larger amounts. That means they can produce more. They can give us more each shipment. Right now, it's quite small quantities, and it has to be distributed around the country. So it's not like we are slow because we don't want to give the vaccine, but we don't have enough to give out at the same time. So I think that as we get more vaccines in, it's very important that we vaccinate, because we do need to get to herd immunity, and herd immunity 70%. So which means that we really need the rakyat to come forward. We're doing our best that we can. We are pushing the manufacturers to try and supply as quickly as possible, but we are in a very funny situation. Malaysia, the rich countries have got more than enough supply. The COVAX facility is set up, and then the poorer countries are also getting supply. So we are in the middle. We kind of are squeezed in the middle. It's a middle income trap, right? Because the rich ones have it, then they decide that they have to make sure the poorer ones get it, and then the middle income ones it's kind of left out. So we have to push very, very hard. But so far the manufacturers have kept to their promise. So it's not that they are not supplying. There is a schedule of supplies. But all I can say to the public is, by June, we are ready to really scale up very fast. And there's also a question I saw about, do we have enough capacity? Yes, we have more than close to 1,000 vaccination sites that have been agreed and set up around the country. Tapi kita akan gunakan GPs. So the GPs are going to play, the general practitioner, the klinik-klinik swasta are going to play a very important role, di mana mereka akan diberi vaksin, dan when you are given your appointment, you boleh pergi klinik, and klinik can give. And of course, university hospitals like UKM, all these other teaching hospitals are also setting up vaccination centers juga. So we have one message maybe I want to convey to our listeners is that if you have 3 conditions, 1, you are on ubat untuk mencairkan darah, blood thinners. Number 2, you are immune compromised, mana mungkin previously on cancer on chemotherapy sebagainya. And number 3, you have very severe allergies. Make sure that you get clearance from your doctor before you go to pusat pemberian vaksin. Misalnya mungkin in your MySejahtera dia kata okay, you go to this hospital. Kalau hospital tak apa, no problem, because there's always a doctor there. Tapi kita juga ada pusat pemberian vaksin, dan if you have all these 3 things I mentioned, you can now, I think on the JKJAV Vaccine COVID punya website ataupun MySejahtera, you can go to your doctor or clinic and ask them to certify that you are fit to receive the vaccine in any center, or you must get the vaccine in a hospital. Then it's easy for you to then you don't have to go back and forth to figure out your vaccine. Whatever it is, we have a hotline. Call us anytime, that we can help you. But most importantly, please, go for your vaccine. Any vaccine is better than no vaccine. Data hari ini menunjukkan di UK, Prof Adiba pun tadi share dengan saya, British Medical Journal, jumlah kes menurun dengan mendadak, even with 1 dose of Pfizer or AstraZeneca. Jadi kita perlu mengikut sains, sebab tu ini Sense with Science, kita kena ambil vaksin tu untuk menurunkan risiko. Vaksin mengurangkan risiko untuk kita mendapat penyakit yang serius. Dia tidak langsung kata zero tak akan dapat, tapi mungkin kita dapat sesama sikit saja. Tapi yang pentingnya yang serius tu kita kurangkan. Jadi lepas diberi vaksin pun, selagi rakyat Malaysia belum divaksin dan mendapat herd immunity, kita mesti teruskan menggunakan mask, kita kena juga jaga social distancing. Dan seperti Prof Adiba dan in all our episode, we always stress about outdoor and ventilation. Go outside, nak makan dekat luar, nak jalan-jalan dengan family, jalan dekat luar. Jangan duduk dalam aircon room dan sebagainya.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, can I just add on that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, Tan Sri. Yeah, and also just to the anti-vax now. You cannot, not getting a vaccine, like you say, let the natural immunity comes in. As you know, COVID, this virus, you can get a second time. Meaning that natural immunity is not there with COVID. So the ethical way is to get vaccination. So yeah, to get that immunity, you need vaccination. So you cannot wait for natural immunity to come to you. Not with COVID.
I love how you said that, Dr. Fadzilah, because so many people feel that vaccinations are the silver bullet. But you know, among the medical fraternity, we know that vaccination does not mean one cannot get COVID. Being fully vaccinated against COVID only means that should a person get it, their chances of dying from it are much reduced. Brutally put, correct? So, you know, vaccinations are very, very important. But there's also
not only dying, Karen, not only dying, the mortality rate in Malaysia is very low. Tapi to use ICU or to be, you know, to be in intensive care and sebagainya is much lower. And that's what we want. We don't want to also collapse the health system.
Absolutely. So the next question is, do the new mutations mean the current vaccines are rendered null and void?
Maybe I can take this one. So, you know, intense concerns and research are going on to look at the effect of the new variants. First of all, when you look at variants, you look at what it does. So these mutations, the B117, the UK variant, for instance, has been shown to increase the ease of spread. So one of the reasons why the UK had many cases was thought to be due to the widespread spread of the B117. So it increases transmissibility. Some variants, the so-called South African one, may also increase severity. And then, of course, young we fear is that it will escape the effectiveness or the efficacy of the vaccine. So what we know at the moment is, except for the South African variant, most of the vaccine are still very effective against the other variants. So, but even with the South African variant, if you've got the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine, which is 95% efficacious, it is still effective against the South African variant, but maybe a little less so. So all this intense research is going on, and that's why, as we spoke about earlier, it's super important to have a surveillance of not just infections, but also of the types of variants that's starting to circulate in the country, so that, you know, we're not always, we hope to be several steps ahead and not, you know, 10 steps behind kind of thing. Because unfortunately, this virus is very clever and it keeps mutating and doing all kinds of things to trick us.
Following on, Professor Deva, can I also ask our specialist, if somebody has already had COVID, can they get a mutated strain? Is it more easy for them to get a mutated strain or harder?
It's not necessarily easier to get a mutated strain, but what it means is that the antibody that you have produced from the first non-mutated strain may not be enough to fight against the mutated strain. So similarly, a vaccine, which is kind of an artificial way of producing the antibodies, if you then are faced with a mutated strain, it may be not strong enough to fight against that mutated strain.
All right. We have another question on, again, going to work and trying to return to normal. Is taking public transportation a higher risk? This person has an opinion that they think that we need another round of campaigning to reinforce regulations as passengers are getting fatigued in following SOPs.
Yeah, I answered that on Facebook, and I said, yes, you know, anything that is, you know, crowds and in confined spaces is a high risk. And public transport has been also flagged through machine learning and artificial intelligence that it's a risk factor. So I